It wouldn't be Merch Week without covering Fairly Oddparents. Last time I did the worst episode of Fairly Oddparents. This year, because it's spooky hours, let's talk about one of their Halloween specials. Speaking of Halloween, we have this amazing Halloween poster that's up on CrowdMade right now. Super high quality, one of the best designs I have right now, and it's only around for a limited while, so make sure to go to alphaj.show/merch and get your poster design today. So Fairly Oddparents starts off with something scary. You'd expect a ceiling when it comes to children's animation, let alone television, that you can't push the limit too far, but somehow they got this past the censors here. They show a reminder that Crash Nebula was trying to be its own show. Ugh. I fear no man or panda, but I definitely fear that. Fortunately, this is for an actual reason. The episode opens up with Crash Nebula to show this pumpkin-themed doomsday device going by Pumpkinator. All jokes aside, it's a very creative open that gives the upcoming antagonist weight given that we know what it's capable of. An elderly woman approaches the doomsday device only to reveal as Crash Nebula. It is then when we see the smartest villain within the galaxy.
I can totally defeat you in less than 10 seconds.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Space cred.
Yes, a part of Butch Harmon's school of you-know-what comedy, but what makes this funny is that it's actually not contrived. Crash Nebula explicitly states that he can defeat the Pumpkinator in less than 10 seconds. So the Pumpkinator actually sped up time so that could never happen. Plus it pokes fun at the trope within action and superhero shows having a rigid, uninterruptible countdown that must finish before doing what it does.
Where's the rest?
It's that type of humor that I like about early Fairly Oddparents, and it's a fantastic opener, even after being reminded that the Pumpkinator is a bad guy by Wanda because yes, Timmy needs to be reminded that blowing up planets is a bad guy thing to do. He insists on going as the Pumpkinator under the premise that the kids who get the most candy are the people who have the scariest costumes because nothing says scary like an aluminum pumpkin outfit. People who dress up as cuter things such as fairies or princesses? No candy. Timmy's parents who dress up as each other? No candy. In fact, they don't even explicitly state that they're going trick-or-treating, and if they do, it's a little unorthodox to go trick-or-treating dressed up as your significant other who is of the opposite gender while being an adult but not taking your kid, but forcing them to go trick-or-treating anyway. I don't know, I'm not a doctor or a sociologist or someone who goes outside. Then again, Timmy's parents weren't exactly the shining example of how to raise a human being in the first place.
I wish I had one of the Jackal-Bot costumes.
Well, it says here there are only 4 actual costumes, and they were won in a contest.
Leave it to Fairly Oddparents to be able to clone something in one episode and not clone something in the next episode, specifically for the rules that are needed within the episode to make it work. Although the inconsistent nature of the rules have never bothered me, both as a child and now, I think it's funny that fairy law respects the nature of any contest, but at the same time completely gives the bird to the laws of physics, the laws of nature, and the concept of science and life as we know it. Speaking of breaking the rules, we have the rich kids in their Jackal-Bot costumes openly admit that they bribed the judges in order to win the costumes. I guess fairy law dictates that even if someone cheats to win, they honor a contest to the highest degree, even when they don't deserve it and violated the rules of a contest.
Costumes this wonderful deserve treats equally as wonderful.
Here's Timmy's video games, all of his CDs, and the money we were saving for his birthday presents.
You know, if the weird, wild, and wacky people of the internet started a rumor that there was a deleted scene where Timmy clocked his parents in the jaw after seeing such a massive sign of disrespect, I'd believe them, and I would probably also spread that rumor. The material possessions are one thing, but to explicitly label the money that you were giving to the kids as, quote,
the money we were saving for his birthday presents.
Timmy has the right, not privilege, to fight his parents. There is no rule against that. In a prime example of how while Timmy is mistreated for entertainment obviously, but sometimes asks for it, Timmy's parents openly state that Chester and AJ's costumes are lame and give them something to match. Lame advice. However, rather than standing up for his friends, believing that the thought and effort matched to the amount of resources available should be put on a higher pedestal than diamonds and rubies and gold outfits just because they're diamonds, rubies, and gold, Timmy sides with his parents, who sold his collection of nice things and funds for future nice things purely because of a rigged contest prize, to also agree that the costumes are pretty bad. The funniest thing about the situation is that Timmy's family is not rich, and if anything, they're about the same socio-economic wise as AJ at the very least. So they go off trick-or-treating with other kids who seem to be having a lot of fun despite not having the best outfit out there. And it's then when we see the Yugopotamian race spying on Earth.
It appears the Earthlings are hosting some sort of intergalactic convention.
Without inviting us? They're conspiring against us!
One nice scene that would most likely go overlooked is the fact that Vicky is aside Timmy and his friends slash godparents, basically looking miserable as the popular kids take all of the candy. It's very rare to see Vicky on the same end as Timmy when it comes to perception, as nearly everyone that Vicky runs into within Fairly Oddparents is fearful of her, thus giving her a higher status not out of respect, but out of fear, so it's an interesting dynamic here for sure. Principal Axoplax opens up the door dressed as a mirror so that they can see their faces when they realize that they won't be able to get that sick limited poster design at alphaj.show/merch. And if that isn't enough, reflective tape. If that wasn't weird enough, consider the following. Since their goal was to get as much candy as possible, and considering that Vicky was right with them during the trick-or-treating with the principal, Vicky is standing as far away as she can in this next scene. However, it isn't because of story logic, it is because of the lack of logic. When Timmy and his friends approach Dr. Bender, he offers way more candy than I'm assuming they've gotten all throughout the evening and night so far. However, it is because of how he labels the candy and his intentions that gives the crew cold feet.
Enjoy the tooth-rotting goodness, and I'll be slowly scraping your gums in no time. You're the reason I don't have any friends!
Now, while I agree that an evil dentist trying to rot your teeth by indulging in a tradition of giving out candy is very awful, but in a good way, I do have to question why any of them would want candy after that. If you didn't care, then take the candy. You probably would have had somewhere in the ballpark of what Trixie and her friends got off the second house, as far as I can tell. If you do care about rotting your teeth, then why go trick-or-treating at all? It's clear that Vicky is going to want you guys to collect the most candy that you can get, and seeing that they're all 10, it's not like they're going to practice moderation. A very weird immersion-breaking scene all around. However, I do like how Wendell completely went against Dr. Bender, which I'm kind of assuming that they're like a father and son thing. I don't know. I'm pretty sure another episode confirms that, but I'm not sure. We then have more adults confusingly conflate 4 metal costumes to equal deserving of money and possibly candy if there's any more room left in the bag. Aren't these costumes from a cartoon? I'm not saying that cartoons are only for children, but I am saying that for a show as full of tropes as Fairly Oddparents, I can't imagine most adults watching Crash Nebula. So the fact that all adults collectively seem to know enough about the show and the villain to understand that this is a highly regarded villain costume, that just seems completely insane. Now, you may deny all of this and conflate it to being about the fact that these costumes are made of ruby, diamond, gold, and silver, but then why show other kids having fun in just as, quote, lame costumes as the main cast earlier? Wouldn't it drive the point home if there were other kids who may have had better than average costumes also having success? It doesn't even need to be a full scene, but just in the background, equally impressive outfits and costumes as the rich kids. I'd argue that the implication that it's about the material is equal if not less true, considering that it seems to be about the fact that this is a costume from Crash Nebula, and that most adults are just written within the episode to know about this episode and know about this villain, which is very weird. Anyway, with Timmy coming to the realization that you either need to have something real like the rich kids costumes, or scary like Vicky, he wishes for both, something real and scary. A really neat and subtle touch is that once this wish happens, after a decent song, we see Cosmo and Wanda turn into their intended costumes as well. However, they don't completely remove the rug from under you and show you that because of this change, it removes their ability to use magic. Look, Fairly Oddparents, when you use subtlety, it works. I wonder why they would go on to hate it so much.
Halloween greetings, Jackalbot.
Hey, Chad, look! It's our arch enemy, Crash Nebuboil! He's got intergalactic.
I have to stick up for my boy Elmer here. You guys have done him entirely crazy. You guys are wild. Firstly, Tad, Chad, whatever your name is, the gold one. If you ever committed to a hairstyle, maybe the show would have committed to giving you more screen time. You look like you went to a hair salon to get the ponytail for the left side, but then you went to Staples for the bent index card for the other side. And Silver Boy, your head looks like a shoe. All American boot manufacturers have called. They want their shoe shape back. I think they're gonna have to rename the book. There was an entitled Brat's Brain that lived in a shoe. In fact, you both look like you either have mumps or you have the resting Ed and Eddie jawbreaker face. In fact, intergalactic, the sides of your faces look like they could be reclassified as a dwarf planet back in 2005. But all jokes aside, this is an incredible scene where both sides emerge from their intended costume to look more like the actual thing. Just like in the actual Crash Nebula show, Crash here is equally as useless. The Jacobots come together to destroy the planet. With the great control of pace for this 22-minute special, they go back to Yugopotamia, where the Yugopotamians organize a trip to save Vicky purely because Mark said so. However, the funniest part is yet to come. That is this.
Let us test the suits by using this hideously yummy earthly gumdrop.
Oh, its sweetness is most painful!
Okay.
I think the greatest part about this is how Mark nonchalantly goes back to what he was doing anyway. It's like the test has never existed. Firstly, not only did the test fail, but spectacularly failed if said candy was able to burn through, well, everything. Secondly, it's hilarious the way that Mark immediately in the next scene ignores the fact that he burnt his friend's tentacle limb pretty casually. And lastly, this feels like some backhanded Yugopotamian thing, as they think the opposites of humans, at least within the Fairly Oddparents universe. I can totally imagine them thinking that because the suits failed, that must mean that they're good, which is why Mark never reacted in a way that humans would. However, considering the other inconsistencies within the show, let alone the episode, I may be giving the team a little bit too much credit there. Speaking of inconsistencies, get a load of this. So once Timmy finds out that he would be the only person on Earth who knows about Yugopotamians, they must be real. They can't be costumes. He hears about the fact that they're coming to Earth, specifically to rescue Vicky from a quote, doomed planet. Said doomed planet being 100% the Jacobots turning into the Pumpkinator, enacting the same planet-destructing force that they were successful in doing within the Crash Nebula episode. However, upon wishing that things were back to normal, considering that it can't be that easy, let's hear the explanation for it.
Timmy, when you wished everyone's costume was real and scary,
We became a real scary human monster janitor and nurse without magic powers!
Firstly, a real human monster janitor sounds wrong. Secondly, let's kind of shine a light on the elephant in the room here. So earlier within this exact same episode, so don't even talk about the fact that there isn't continuity between episodes, which fun fact, that's not even entirely true anyway, but if you do assume that in addition to that there isn't any continuity even within a singular episode, please donate all of your money to Oaxis so that you don't influence anything that actually matters. Earlier within this exact same episode, Cosmo and Wanda were unable to create a costume for the Jacobots because the only 4 authentic ones were won in a contest, mind you through underhanded means. So you're telling me that within the rules, there is a rule against making counterfeit stuff, or cloning or copying, or basically a rule to protect the authenticity of any prize won within a contest, but within that same rulebook, for fairies, who are designed to keep children happy and comfortable, there is no rule at all in the creating a force grand enough to destroy a planet on the whim of a child's request. That's incredibly, spectacularly, awe-inspiringly convoluted. But I can't say that it ruins the episode for me because upon a casual view, it doesn't really matter. But yes, I am well aware that one of my favorite shows is built on a foundation of complete inconsistencies and bullcrap.
but Timmy, none of those costumes can stop a 30-foot-tall doomsday device.
Alone? Probably not. Together? They probably can!
Say whatever you want about Fairly Oddparents, like with what I mentioned back when I did the Fairly Oddparents Vicky episode a little while back, the vision that Harmon has for episodes is definitely grandiose, and of the way that a cartoon could take very well advantage of. This fight is a great example of that. It's amazing, action-packed, it keeps the pace well, it didn't go on for too long, and in fact, if anything, I would have wanted this fight to go on a little bit longer. Like, this could have been a great video game scene.
I will mourn him for 9,000 Yugopotamian days. And now I'm done. And freeze one of his clones.
Jesus Christ, Fairly Oddparents. Getting back to the fight, I don't even want to unpack that there. Timmy is crushed under the giant weight and unstoppable force of the pumpkinator. Wanda brings the solution in a nicely wrapped bow. You see, with that giant tooth now out after Timmy's failed conversion, he'd be horrible in town of Salem, Wanda uses a pillow to summon the Tooth Fairy. Even though this brings up the question of why didn't the real Tooth Fairy show up, given that fairies outside of Cosmo and Wanda didn't dress up for Halloween, so it's kind of implied that they're still doing their normal job. It's an amazing callback to when Wendell was wearing the Tooth Fairy outfit earlier, which is both realistic towards the character and the background, but also clever for the story writing. So I do give points on that. With Timmy wishing everything back to normal, everything comes back full circle, but with a twist.
You mean this planet isn't arming itself for intergalactic war?
Yes, it is! I, Timmy Turner, Supreme High Supervisor, declare war between Earth and Yugopotamian!
With the fact that Yugopotamian thinks that bad is good, according to Earth logic, and that candy is the worst thing ever, they launch the P-Bomb, which after a clever joke from Cosmo, which I won't spoil, drops candy. I do think it's a little bit of a mixed message to show the rich kids having candy because, wow, you almost destroyed Earth. There is still a socio-economic oppression that they willingly gloat about and take full advantage of? Did you win the outfits purely out of buying out the corrupt judges? Here, have a whatchamacallit. Vicky being the main one punished is okay, I guess, but I thought it would have been funny if the rich kids also got their just desserts and weren't around for any of the candy to show how they wanted the most and now they got the least because of their attitude. After a dentist visit, that was Scary Godparents, the Fairly Oddparents Halloween special. Quite the adventure indeed, I love it, I really do. And speaking of visit, make sure to visit alphaj.show/merch and get yourself that limited edition poster. I already got mine, it's only available for a short while, and it's one of the best designs I've had in a while. Anyway, special thanks to everyone who's been supporting me so far. I really hope you guys have been enjoying Merch Week. I have a lot more to come, and thank you so much for your time. Take care. Alpha out.